Welcome, everyone. My name is Jack Rico, and thank you for downloading episode 30 of the Highly Relevant Podcast. This is the show for those of you who love to have your finger on the pulse of U.S. Latino pop culture. On this week's episode, we talk with the creator of the most anticipated show in Spanish language TV right now, Univision's El Chapo. We get to the moral and ethical controversies of getting the show done, the fascination of cartel TV shows, and if actors Kate del Castillo and Sean Penn will be making any cameos. Also, urban millennial network ViceLand's has a new show called Jungletown that takes place in Panama. Why are they there, and why should we even care? I talked to Jimmy Stice, the man behind it all. That, plus highlights of the Premios Billboard, reviews of Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Broadway's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory musical, all on the Highly Relevant Podcast. With Mexican cartel drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman in the headlines this week after Senator Ted Cruz asked for his $14 billion in drug money to be invested into building Donald Trump's wall along Mexico, Univision couldn't have timed the airing of their new original series El Chapo any better.
Le dicen El Chapo.
Chiquito pero picoso. El dinero compra poder.
Silvana Aguirre, creator, writer, and producer of the series, joins me now to discuss the show. Silvana, welcome to the Highly Relevant Podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Silvana, who approached you about creating the series El Chapo? Was it Univision executives or was it you, and then you pitched it?
No, it was Univision executives. They had the idea. The project has been on the making for at least 3 years now, and they had the idea of tackling this theme and this character, and then they invited me to the project.
What was your initial reaction when they pitched this? Did you feel that you morally were up to the task, or did you have some internal struggles with ethics, moral, friends, family?
Oh, God. I continue having moral struggles and internal struggles, of course. If you are going to, embark on something like this, you better question a lot of things. Why are you doing it? What are you trying to say with the story? And why would you, take the project? And so for me, the thing was, I understood when they asked me to join the project, I understood that they wanted to talk about a newsworthy character that was very relevant to the Latino audiences, around the world. And for me personally, it was talking about this character gave me the possibility of talking about a wider view of a very complex world, that is the drug trade world, and talk about some things that a lot of people kind of know, but it hasn't been portrayed yet on the shows, at least in Latin America, in these kind of shows, that is like the corruption on the government, and also even the DEA involvement sometimes that allows a character like El Chapo to arrive, and to have a very long career. To say something, I don't know how to put what he does, but so for me it was trying to give a bigger perspective of that kind of world, a window into that. So it was more about that than just talking about this.
But what about the Mexican actors like Humberto Busto, who had ethical rules to not participate in shows about drug cartels? How did you get them to break that? And was Marco de la O, the lead actor who does El Chapo, was he also one of them?
Yeah, everybody, I think, cast and crew that have decided to join the project, they have had their own, personal concerns, and nobody jumped into this project without thinking about it, I think. And about Humberto in particular, I think he's a very, very thoughtful person. I think everybody involved in this project, they're not people that are taking this, in a light way. They are really thinking about what we're saying, and I think it was the script, to be honest. When they read the script and they understood what we're trying to do with it, then they wanted to join. So that was encouraging, because then the story was coming through in a way that we were managing to tell something like wider, and also keeping the balance with the protagonist, trying to portray him. Like one journalist said it really well. She said, you see a human being, but it's never normalized. His behavior is not normal, and it shouldn't be normalized. And we are always trying to balance, this thing about, of course, you will root for him sometimes, because it's very difficult not to do it when he's the protagonist of the series. But the next moment, you should be feeling really concerned. Why are you rooting for this guy? Because we are trying to make the audience feel uncomfortable a lot of the time. So you remember just the whole aspect of it.
Right. So, well, that brings me also to the point of glorification. Now, I've asked Rafael Amaya, who is the lead actor in Telemundo's El Señor de los Cielos, the same question. And it's interesting how they somehow wrestle with that. This is a drug cartel show about a man who is one of the biggest drug lords of our generation after Pablo Escobar. There's movies being made about him. There's TV shows being made about him. And it's directed towards the Latin community. So the question is, are you glorifying this, or is this some sort of informational, educational entertainment? How do you label this?
I label it like the information side. I think these are facts that have happened. We are basing the series on the news that have been reported. We work really closely with the Univision investigative team, with Gerardo Reyes and his team, and also we worked on a daily basis on the writer's room with Alejandro Almazan, which is a Mexican journalist who has lots of experience about the drug world in Mexico. So for us, it was, all about telling a story that the story of El Chapo is intertwined and embedded in Mexican history for the past 30 years at least, So we were very keen on that, telling facts, of course you have to fictionalize sometimes on top of those events, but I really, really hope we are not glorifying El Chapo's character. We are just trying to tell a story that is, it has happened. It has affected lots of people, for me, the key thing is if the audience is patient, and you see, I am sure if you see the 3 seasons, you will get like a complex world, and you will get different points of views of the same things. It's not only about them all the time.
Right.
It's just the way it develops. On the season 1, it's all about him trying to, gain some power inside the drug cartel he works in. So it's really, close, right? But then second season opens on the Guerra contra el Narco that is famous in Mexico. Well, infamous because it was terrible. So it keeps growing and showing more points of view. So I think, if you see the series, then I think you will get a really good idea of what we are trying to achieve.
But Silvana, why not do a documentary if you're using all the journalists and you somehow remove yourself from the entertainment aspects of it? Were there any talks about doing the definitive El Chapo documentary brought to you by Univision Fusion, Univision journalists, and yourself? Why do a scripted entertainment?
I think there's 2 reasons. One is, when they approached me, the offer was to do a fiction series, right? It was never to do a documentary. I think it's one because, Univision has reported and done several documentaries as well. Gerardo Reyes and his team have done several documentaries about El Chapo Guzman. And I think what the fiction allows you to do is sometimes as a journalist, you cannot talk about certain things that you have to, have complete certain proofs and everything to be able to say those things. And in the fiction world, you can approach those things. Like, for example, there were some events that are historic events, but you had 3 theories about it, 3 versions of it. And what fiction does is it allows you to make sense of them and just, show sometimes something that everybody talks about and everybody says oh yeah, we know it was this way, but nobody can prove. And You cannot do that on a documentary. You can do it in
And
a
that's
fiction.
where
But
that is where the liberties are being taken, the creative liberties to kind of just be able to enhance those moments that maybe are gaps within the history timeline. Now, let me ask you about Marco de la O. He plays El Chapo. What were the factors that convinced you that he was the man to play El Chapo?
First of all, we were interested in casting an actor that was not that well known on the TV world, because we wanted him to be like, when you saw him, you would believe you were seeing the character, right? And not this famous actor playing the character. So that was one thing. And then the other thing was like, we did a very big cast, and Alejandro Reza was the guy, he's still doing the casting in Mexico. And when we saw Marco, I mean, it's funny because I didn't realize he was really similar looking until after we cast him, It was just this thing about him that I wanted to keep watching him. That was the main thing for me. I mean, he's a very talented actor, and he has plenty of experience in theater and some in cinema,
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought because of his background, he was going to approach the character from a also, deeper level as well, that the way he was going to build the character was going to be very consensual.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was going to help.
Do you think El Chapo is a good man or a bad man?
Listen, I don't think I am no one to say anything about anybody like that. I think he is a person that, it depends on who you ask. No.
Well, the reason I ask is because there's this ongoing fascination with drug lords on Spanish language television. It just feels like every novella or every soap opera or every series that comes out has to be this because it's what the viewers want. It started with La Reina del Sur, Colombia's production of Pablo Escobar, El Señor de los Cielos. Do you think that viewers, our Latino viewers, want to root for him or want to beat him somehow?
No, I think people are interested in the stories. It's not only the drug lords. Like it has happened with like Italian mafia, like Scorsese movies, and it has happened even like before, lots of stories from like Shakespeare or whatever are about dark characters, right? I think what interests the audience is those kind of lives that like 90% of us, right, live a like kind of normal life. Like you work, you go home, you turn on your TV and you're suddenly interested in watching people living things that you hopefully and gratefully will never experience in real life. If you're just seeing it as a window to a world that is, again, hopefully far away from you as much as possible. And I think it's because it also talks about, Umberto said it really nicely the other day, and it's about, humans, we do have a dark side as well, right? And when you see these kind of characters, I think also you kind of reflect on like your inner corrupt politicians. Like his character is a corrupt politician, but it's kind of the same, ambitious, driven character like El Chapo on the other side. So you kind of reflect on your own inner corrupt politician or your own inner,
your
criminal,
own inner Machiavelli, right?
Yeah, exactly. How far would you go for ambition and power, and also by the end of everything, hopefully what you will get if you see the whole series is like, what is it for,
Right.
Why are you, it's not an easy life, it's terrible, what you do is terrible, you lose yourself, you lose your soul, you lose family, what, is it worth it, really? Why would you do this?
Two more questions. Because of the timeline of how this happened, obviously May 5th, he's being he's having another hearing here in New York City on May 5th. But the timeline of the Chapo, right before he got captured, Kate del Castillo and Sean Penn were involved. I wanted to know how you're going to be handling that portion of the chronicling of his story. Will Kate del Castillo actually appear in the show? Has Sean Penn been asked to appear? Or will there be an actor? Like, how are you approaching all this?
Well, that's third season, and we haven't gotten yet there yet.
Is it something you've been thinking about?
That's one bit that is actually very delicate as well to, I think we are telling his story, so as long as this moment, right, with Kate del Castillo and Sean Penn is relevant to the story we are telling about him, then we will touch it. But it's not, I'm not personally interested in the soap opera that was created around that, you know? Like, I think we are telling the story, like the story of this myth, right? We're interested in telling the story of the myth of El Chapo Guzman, not even like his person per se, but this character that was created throughout the years with his escape and all these things. And if that's relevant for that area, then we will go and touch that. And if whatever is not relevant for that, then
I'd love to see it, and I'm sure a lot of viewers would be very interested to see how you handle that aspect of the timeline. And my last question is, Hollywood's doing Hunting El Chapo, which is based on a book, and Michael Bay is in talks to direct it. Fox is doing The Cartel from director Ridley Scott. The History Channel announced recently a drama series that they're developing about Guzman called #Cartel. Why do you think that Latinos are not being chosen to direct these Chapo movies? They're not being asked to be involved on the high levels of filmmaking.
Well, I don't know how they're going to approach the story. Like, I don't know if, for example, they're going to approach it from I think one of them is through the DEA agent's point of view or something. So I don't know if they're going to portray more the United States side of it. I don't know. I think there's plenty of talent in the Latin world, like there are filmmakers that are really, really talented, and they will be completely up for the challenge. You would have to ask that to the producers actually in Hollywood. I have no idea. I think, of course, a Mexican director, like we're working with Mexican directors. We are putting most of our head of departments are Mexicans, of course. Lead characters are Mexicans and also the writers' room was, we had a lot of writers. The lead writer and co-creator of the series is Carlos Contreras, which is Mexican. Because I think, of course, you can learn about the story and you have to do your work, but people in this team have lived this story in their own personal life. Like my producer has been raised in Mexico. He was born in Colombia, and he actually had to leave Colombia because the drug cartels were going to kidnap him. So it's not foreign, to a lot of team members. And I think the authenticity of those life experiences is just amazing, and it just brings something to the project that I think it would be really cool if they use it, also the productions that are being done. Yeah.
You can watch El Chapo with back-to-back episodes every Sunday at 8 p.m. on Univision. Silvana, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
It's time for JackedIN. Let's begin with the top movie news of the week. Universal Pictures is doing a Madonna pick, and Madonna's upset they're doing it without her consent. Horror director M. Night Shyamalan is planning an Unbreakable and Split sequel combined. TriStar Studios is in talks to do a biopic about WWE Chairman Vince McMahon, and director Jonathan Demme passed away this week. Changing to the small screen, Netflix is renewing 2 shows for season 2, Ingobernable starring Kate del Castillo, and teen suicide show 13 Reasons Why by Selena Gomez. Season 2 of one of the best Spanish shows on Netflix, Mar de Plástico, is streaming now. YouTube has greenlit Ryan Seacrest's new music competition series based on cover songs. DC Entertainment is planning a Netflix-type platform for their new superhero shows, and ESPN has laid off 100 employees. In music news, Beyonce's Lemonade is named World's Best-Selling Album of 2016. Katy Perry will be performing on SNL May 20th with host The Rock. Drake will host the 2017 NBA Awards. Harry Styles will perform for a full week on the James Corden's Late Late Show. And if you missed the Latin billboards, the 2 highlights of the night were Luis Fonsi and Daddy Yankee singing Despacito, sans Justin Bieber, and Jennifer Lopez debuting a new Spanish single called Mírate, releasing later this summer. Have a listen. And in tech and social media news, Argentine Pope Francis gave a TED Talk this week. A TED Talk this week. It's the first time a pope has ever done it. USA Today reports women, blacks, and Hispanics are leaving tech because of racial harassments. Obama thinks we should be more careful with our selfies, and Spotify is planning to make podcasts more relevant by creating documentary podcasts. Oh, and before we forget, congrats to the following Hispanics for being included in Time Magazine's prestigious Time 100 list. Pope Francis, singer Demi Lovato, soccer player Neymar, President of Colombia Juan Manuel Santos, and Democratic leader Tom Perez, amongst the other notables. Felicitaciones a todos! You guys have heard of Vice News, right? Well, ViceLand is the television extension of the site, and they have a new 10-part documentary series about South America's Panama called Jungletown. Its creator is Jimmy Stice, and it centers around a group of young millennials who pay $5,000 each to serve as interns in the jungles of Panama and learn how to create a sustainable ecological town.
We're building a town to look for the best ways we can live in terms of compassionately treating each other in a global community. Access to food, access to healthcare, access to socioeconomic mobility that's actually beneficial to the environment.
Jimmy, welcome to the Highly Relevant Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Jimmy, you begin the first episode saying you can't call your life beautiful if it's making other people's lives ugly. Is that the basis for why you felt the need to do this docuseries?
This is for why I wanted to do the docuseries, was just to have a third party like Andy Timoner and like Vice looking at what we're doing and getting that third party perspective. It's just almost, you also have trouble looking yourself in the mirror and judging what you're doing accurately in life. So I think having a two-time Sundance winner and a network that is really willing to get down and dirty with subject matters is what made me excited about the docuseries.
Take me through the description of Jungletown.
Sure. So what I'm trying to do is to build a sustainable and socially responsible town in the middle of a cow field in the jungles of Panama. And what that means right now is that we bring 18 to 25-year-old students, which 18 to 25-year-olds are the pioneers who built most of the 1.5 million cities and towns around the world. We bring them into the jungle, and they camp there, and they study biology, they study agriculture, they study culinary, they work in the public schools to tell us how to fulfill those social and environmental missions. For us, it's some pretty hard living out there in the jungle. That's why 18 to 25-year-olds do it. The research they do is phenomenal. They're completely mission-oriented. They don't give a shit about our profits or our investors. They only care about mission, which is excellent. And it's rough out there. And what we didn't realize was, 18 to 25-year-olds stuck in a jungle trying to build a town is actually it's kind of some good subject matter, I guess. We thought we were trying to, but we didn't realize the entertainment value we were creating when we did it.
Why South America's Panama?
I think that the developing world, you're seeing the rise of the middle class in the developing world. You're seeing the fact that it hasn't been totally developed yet. So there is a chance to take it in a positive direction instead of an exploitive direction. And Panama is kind of this amazing little New York of Latin America, this hub of the world, where you've got the second largest duty-free zone in Hong Kong. You've got 5% of all shipping traffic for goods coming between countries. It's this international hub that happens to also have one of the world's 20 biological hotspots. It happens to also have all of these different ecosystems from mountains to the Caribbean to the Pacific. So it's just a really unique place. And I think that also something that's very unique because of those attributes is you have more influence per capita in Panama than anywhere else in the world.
Now, out of the interns, out of the cast and crew that's there, how many of them are Latinos? And did you ever leave the premises to go into the city, into Panama City?
Yeah, I'm actually only at Caleyala about 4 days a week, 3 nights, usually Monday through Thursday. I usually try and do some phone calls Monday morning and on Friday in the city to do business. And so that's how often I'm there. The Latino population at Caleyala, since it's a study abroad program, most people don't study abroad in their own country. So even though we have people from Mexico, people from Argentina that are on the show, you see a largely North American, Canadian audience in our study abroad group. In terms of our staff, we're pretty close to a 50-50 ratio. in terms of Latinos who are working for us. Some of them are also from Colombia and other countries, Venezuela.
What exactly do you believe in as a person, and that's taking you all the way down to create Kuluyala?
I believe in social capitalism. I believe in the fact that we each create the world that we end up inhabiting. And I think that we need to realize that in order to be able to feel empowered to create it. So the reason I'm creating Kaliyala is to show that human beings can be stewards to the earth and to each other, and that we can also pay our bills, raise our kids, have whatever lives we want to live while being inclusive to others, creating social equality, and actually regenerating environments that are already damaged and preserving environments that are still pristine.
Jimmy, where do these ideas come from, man, from you? Is it your parents? Was it school? Was it an experience that you went through? I mean, I do not know people like you.
Really? Really? I feel like we're kind of getting to the more of a dime a dozen state, little by little.
No. I happen to think that's your inner circle. That's probably the people that you surround yourself around. But there's other people who they might think like that. They come up with ideas, but the actual essence of executing on those ideas and being so selfless and altruistic and doing something like you've done, like. I'm looking at the show and I'm astounded that people like this exist. And so,
let's not call it selfless and altruistic. I mean, it's like I wanted to build a town that I wanted to live in. That's a very selfish motivation. And when I started thinking about where I wanted to live, I wanted it to be beautiful. I wanted it to be socially responsible. And I got stuck trying to do this crazy thing. That for it to say this is an ideal town where I would ideally like to live, which is a selfish motivation. It turned out that I needed to do a lot of work to help other people, and so I would start out by saying it's
one
definitely
hand
not
watches the other, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I think like doing good is a very selfish thing to do. I think I mean.
But where do these ideas come from you? Where did you pick this up?
I think. My dad kind of came up from nothing, was born in a 900 square foot house in Kirkwood, Missouri, and worked his butt off and ended up being very successful and just raised me kind of questioning our education system, questioning corporate loyalty and whether you should try to get a job at a corporation because he doesn't think that they're necessarily always looking out for their well-being of their employees long term. And just saying, hey, entrepreneurship it's harder, but it lets you create your own path. And Jimmy, you've got to pay your bills, but once you can figure out how to pay your bills, figure out how to make yourself happy. And if you can make yourself happy and make the world a better place while paying your bills, then that's really when you've got life dialed. And so he kind of challenged me to see, can you have a career that is satisfying to yourself and if possible, makes other people's lives better.
What are the serious issues that are being addressed in this series? I know that this, to a certain extent, is also part of entertainment and education as well, but what exactly are the issues that you want people to take away after watching this 10-part docuseries? I
think the biggest issue is that idealism is hard. That it's not all pretty and easy. I think, for instance, like on that question you just asked, like on my number one agenda for 2018 that we're gearing up to is increasing diversity at Kaliyala. So just inclusive pricing, inclusive product doesn't mean that you're going to lead to diversity. So I think figuring out what does this global world look like in terms of diversity is a really hard question. I think episode 4 is all about where does your food come from? Should you eat meat, or is it not ethical to eat meat? Whether it's for global warming or for animal rights. So we're trying to tackle. We really are out there fighting to build this socially and environmentally just world, and that's a lot harder to do than to say. And I think the show captures that.
What do Panamanians think of you guys being there? Is there any criticism from any angle, and how are you handling that?
I'm sure there's criticism, but in general, we're pretty popular. I think when we showed up, we were kind of, Panamanians are used to foreigners coming, trying to do something, and then kind of going home with their tail between their legs or getting burned out. So now that we've been there for 8 years, we drink beers in the bar with the guys. Some of our folks go to church with folks in town. We work together. We get involved and support local political issues. We teach in the schools, both during school as assistant teachers, and we run all the after-school programming in San Miguel. So, and right now we're just neighbors. And so, I mean, we're definitely the weird neighbors, but I think everyone sees that we've got good intentions and that we're doing stuff to take care of their community because we want to be part of it.
And last question, Jimmy, are there any more plans to do projects like this in Latin America? Do you want to go to Chile, Uruguay, Colombia?
Right now, we're already talking about doing it again in Panama, at the beach, actually, about 4 hours from downtown. We're looking at Honduras. Is very interesting to us. There's some really interesting things happening there that make it kind of something that's irresistible to us. And then we're also looking at coming back to the United States. As people say, why is an American down there? And I say, oh, you know what, you're right. Like West Virginia, obviously, needs economic development, needs people to see that we can do better for ourselves and our families by doing better.
And redevelop communities as well.
Yeah, so we're excited about coming back to the United States as well. We're trying to, if the idea works, if the numbers say this makes financial sense, this is good for the environment, this is good for the human beings involved and those being impacted by it, then it's my goal to scale it as much as I can.
Jimmy, thank you so much. The name of the show is Jungletown, and you can see it right now on ViceLand. Thanks for being on the podcast, Jimmy.
I appreciate the heck out of the opportunity. Thank you for having me.
So, I'm assuming you just need to know if Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is better than the original, right? Well, no. The answer is no. It is not better than the original, but it is one hell of a fun ride, especially towards the second half.
Garden of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy. Why would we be the Guardians of the Galaxy?
In this comedic sci-fi opera, Chris Pratt's character Peter Quill meets his father, played by Kurt Russell. But he soon discovers that not all fathers are loving.
After all these years, I've found you.
And who the hell are you?
I'm your dad, Peter.
In Guardians of the Galaxy 2, you pretty much get everything from Volume 1, but this time around, supporting characters get more screen time. There's a small but misplaced cameo of Sylvester Stallone, and the 3D effects are some of the very best my eyes have seen. This is a fun movie that is everything you want in a summer movie. And before we move on to a review of Broadway's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory musical, here's the 3 most listened to songs on the Billboard charts right now. That's What I Like, Bruno Mars.
I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do.
Shape of You, Ed Sheeran.
I'm in love with your body.
And the number 1 song in America, Humble, from Kendrick Lamar.
Sit down. Be humble. Sit down.
Seeped in the rich memories of Roald Dahl's 1964 children's book and music from Gene Wilder's cinematic classic Willy Wonka, this new Broadway musical manages to deliver good moments of enjoyment for the whole family.
The Candyman makes everything he bakes satisfying and delicious.
Amongst the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory highlights are the lovable and memorable characters, the timeless songs such as The Candyman and Pure Imagination, plus some clever and imaginative sequences. What is perhaps its only flaw is the lackluster stage design. The vivid and colorful universe of the book and film felt undersized and even cheap, a true crime that producers couldn't translate its magic to the stage. Nevertheless, there's a warmth and heart to the story and performances with uproarious yet uncomfortable comedy bits worth several hearty laughs and squirms. If you love chocolate and you love Willy Wonka, then you'll enjoy Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. See it now on Broadway's L'Enfantin Theater.
That's why I brought you to see the view from here.
And that's a wrap for our 30th episode of the Highly Relevant Podcast. I'd like to thank Silvana Aguirre and Jimmy Stice for coming on the show, and I want to thank you guys, as always, for listening. If you want to get a shout out from us, tweet me at Jack Rico Official. That's me on Twitter at Jack Rico Official. We're now also on the Revolver Podcast Network, which means you can hear us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and Stitcher. Also, please subscribe and share with your friends. It really helps us out. Again, see you next Friday on another episode of Highly Relevant.